It's just me, a cup of coffee, a kettlebell, an exercise mat, and a great view. That's a bit different from the kitchen, wouldn't you say? Usually, when I'm at home, we will do this from my kitchen because it's a great place to stand in and talk from. And I think the atmosphere and ambience works for the conversations we're trying to have. But given that I am traveling and I don't have my kitchen with me, but I do have a kettlebell and I can always get a cup of coffee, I thought we would do the podcast with a view. And here we are. Being bored out of your mind is healthy and good for a long life. That's what we're going to talk about today. Because I've had some interesting insights on this over the last week. But before we dive into that, for those of you who are watching, hey, my name is Toby. I'm 41 years old and I train to live an active, self-sufficient, and adventurous life. I do so by minding my sleep. I try to get between 7 and 9 hours in a night. I do so by minding what I eat. I try to eat within my energy balance. I try to eat a lot of greens, wholesome, fiber-rich foods. And I try to hit my protein goals to support my strength and muscle building endeavors, which is 60 to 80 grams on a regular day and 80 to 100 grams on a day that I'm actually lifting weights, which usually involves at least 1 to 2 meals of between 30 to 40 grams of protein to help optimize that process. On top of that, I show up for training 3 times a week with kettlebells. I show up for mobility 3 times a week. I show up for HIIT, sprints, agility training once a week. And in the mix of that, I also try to in one 30-minute run. I have judo class 1 hour every week, which is quite physically demanding and intense. And I try to go for a lot of walks, and I try to live actively throughout the day, as in every hour I try to get up and I try to do something which might involve taking the stairs, doing any kind of other activity, just to make sure that I hit between 30 minutes to 2 hours of movement in a day. And I think that's a bare minimum, but that's a different conversation that we can have. So my sleep, my food, my movement, I try to invest time in my relationships, try to make sure that I see my friends, family, that I at least stay connected to them. Doesn't always work out, but at least once a month, try to spend time with someone. And it doesn't always work out simply because life is busy at the moment. When you have 2 kids and a job and things that you want to do together, it's not always easy to find the time to connect with other people who are dealing with the same things, swim classes, sports classes, etc., etc. But finding that time and carving out time throughout the week to make sure that we try to stay connected, that's where the magic's at. And finally, also looking into things that we can master and learn. So for me, that's things like creative writing, it's things like video making and editing, that's things like judo, which has a nice mix of both mastery, socializing, physical activity, right, which is like a full package packed into 1.5 hour every week. A lot of bang for your buck right there. And that's what we talk about on this podcast. We talk about longevity, specifically how we in our 30s, 40s, and 50s can set ourselves up for longer, healthier, better lives. And today I want to talk about disconnecting because, as you can see on the background, maybe there are mountains there. And I have been going out into the mountains and disconnecting um, from the world for the last week. And you're like, well, but you've been streaming this week. That's right. That's what I do between 5:30 and 7 in the morning. I wake up and I do my exercises and I stream them and we talk about health and fitness. And that's great. But for the rest of the day, actually, I switch off my phones and I take my dumb phone with me into the mountain. So I have only WhatsApp And phone calling, there's a camera on that phone, but it's, well, let's just say, not a very good camera. So there's no need for me to take out that phone every 5 minutes and check something on it. And that's led to some interesting insights this week because for the first 3 days that I was doing that, I was constantly taking out that phone, and it has Snake on it, has a couple of other games you even need to pay for to download the full version. Whoever thought of that for that operating system is something else, but I guess there's a market for it. But there was this consistent need to just check the phone. And then after 3 days on the mountains, walking, hiking up trails, doing stuff that is physically challenging, not having headphones in, not listening to music or podcasts, but just listening to nature, listening to the sounds in the mountains, the mountain streams, the animals, the birds, the grass, the wind. Suddenly there's peace of mind. Isn't that something? And it feels really good. And I think it's difficult for us to realize when we are so connected through our phones how important that state of disconnect and boredom actually is. I'm not a crusader against phones, by the way. Um, it's not like I think that we need to go zero technology, even though there might be some benefits to that for our health and well being and for society, especially at the moment. But I think the general idea is that the phone is Morgan is a two-edged, double-sided blade, so to speak. See, I have my phone, and it detracts from my health. It detracts from my well-being. It takes time away from my mind to come to rest. It bombards me with information. Everything becomes urgent. A text message needs to be replied to. I need to get things done on that phone constantly for work. There's always something to organize in the day. But on the other hand, it has, a food calorie tracker. It has access to YouTube where I watch a lot of content that has educated me and that has taught me things and shown me things about the world and about life and about what I would like to explore in life. It allows me to stay connected with family and friends, what we talked about before, halfway across the world, um, simply through text or video message. Instantly, there is that connection. So they're both good things and bad things. And I don't think the technology is inherently bad, even though there are bad bits of technology that are available to us on these devices. And now with the entire AI revolution, that is creating a tremendous step change in how that works and the impact that's going to have on us and how we use technology. But there are also a lot of good things that we can get out of it. It's how we use the technology that matters and how we set boundaries around it. More or less like a car. I don't sit in my car every day, no matter how convenient it is. There's a point to where sitting in the car um, stops me from doing a lot of other things that actually need doing in life. Um, and I'd say the same is true for that phone and that bit of technology or the internet and the connection it provides is that using it for 30 or 60 minutes in a day is probably quite useful. Going to it with a purpose, saying, okay, I now need to book a ticket. I now need to research a holiday. I now need to research an itinerary. I now need to make a reservation. I now am going to learn something about this topic. Those are all very useful applications of the technology. A cloud just passed by in front of the sun, if you're wondering why the light is changing. In a few minutes, the cloud's going to go away again, and we're going to go back to that morning glory and the beautiful sunlight that we have here in the mountains in the morning. But when we are on that device 14 hours a day, right, spending 90 minutes to 2 hours on social media, by the way, if that's the average, right, there's people who spend 5 minutes on it, people like me who spend 0 on it, and people who spend 10 hours on it, okay? We're trading that time for other things because there are only 24 hours in a day. So let's make the calculation really quickly, right? I need to sleep 8 hours baseline, okay? 7 to 9. So let's go with 8. I know some of you are going to say, well, I can sleep 6 hours. I'm sure you can, and more power to you. At my tender age of 41, I've come to value good sleep, good quality sleep, a good amount of sleep. Anywhere between 7 and 9 hours is great. If I can hit 8 hours every day, that's great. That leaves 16 hours, all right? There is time for food 3 times throughout the day, at least 30 minutes. So let's be generous. 2 times 30 minutes, 1 time an hour, if I manage to very quickly put everything together. All right, so that's 2 hours. So we're now to 14 hours in the day. And remember, some people are using social media for 14 hours a day. What are they doing with their lives? Okay, because we're eating, we're sleeping, we haven't even showered and brushed our teeth yet. That's it. All right, so hygiene breaks, bathroom, whatever we need to do. Let's be generous and say 1 hour in total in the day, throughout the day, that we're doing those kinds of things. We're down to 13 hours. Okay. I have on weekdays a commute. On weekends, let's say I need to take my kids to practice when we need to go somewhere to spend the day, do something outdoors or indoors or whatever. All right. So that's about 90 minutes of the day right there already gone. So we're down to 13 hours, 12 hours, 11 and a half hours left. For around 8 hours of the day, I am usually working, right? I have to bills to pay, mortgage, food needs to be bought, holidays need to be paid for, phone subscriptions so that I have access to this wonderful internet that has all of its benefits and detriments, right? So there's another 8 hours. So it leaves me with about 2 hours. Now, you know from experience with me in the morning that I work out for 30 minutes, right? And throughout the day, I also try to find about an hour and a half to move. What are we at? We have like 30 minutes left at this point. You see, the math, the numbers don't add up when you look at the amount of time that we are spending distracting ourselves or entertaining ourselves versus the things that simply need to get done throughout life. If you're saying, well, but I do things on the fly in between, when I'm at work, I check my phone for 5 minutes, great. How much task focus are you able to bring to the day if you do that every 10 minutes or every 15 minutes? Because a lot of things that I do at work usually take, 1 to 2 hours of good focus to actually get done. Even writing a good email, I know we can ask ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever to do that for us, right? But the time to sit down and properly prompt or actually polish and write takes me, 10, 15 minutes to write a good draft and then another 10 minutes to edit it and polish it. That's focused work. And if I'm checking my phone every 10 to 15 minutes, that 30 minutes suddenly becomes an hour and a half. Very ineffective. Okay. But when I use AI to do some research, like I did for this topic, where it scours 100 sources, summarizes them, pits them against each other, within a certain thinking framework that I've provided, provides me with an overview of positives and negatives, for example, and provides some contrast and nuance to a point of view. That saves me an hour and a half of work, but I still need to sit down for 10, 15 minutes and do the focused work of actually prompting that tool to do the work that I want. So I need to think about the question I want to ask it, right? And then work with it to refine the question to really get the answers I want and not take everything it says for face value, but double check to make sure that I'm actually getting information that is reliable and useful for me in life. Okay. So doing those things on the fly, even at home on a Saturday when things need to get done, if the laundry needs to be done, or if which we didn't even account for in the time schedule before, if groceries need to get done, or if they're delivered and they need to be unpacked, every time that phone comes out, things take longer to do. Okay. And from using these devices, but I think we need to rethink how we are actually engaging with these devices and the effects they have on our health, because it is, to a certain extent, in a 24-hour schedule, a zero-sum game. You're either spending 2 hours on your phone, or you're spending an hour in the gym, or an hour walking in nature, or an hour playing a board game with family. But you can't do both when you have maybe 2 to 3 hours of time in a day to spare, right? Because the time management table never really works out entirely that logically in that way. There's slack and there's space to move around, usually between 7 and 10 p.m., right? But it's a trade off. You're either at a restaurant or at a cafe together, deepening your relationship through conversation, through listening, through empathy, through sharing experiences, or you're sitting there spending an hour together on your phone, connecting with people who are not close by. And there's all of this talk about that people are starting to communicate and talk differently because of the way they're using their phones and the content that they're consuming. And I'm not surprised, because communication is a skill that we learn through play and interaction and engaging with each other. And when the facilities and moments for engagement and interaction dissipate and disappear from the fabric of society and are replaced by monotonous listening to people talking at us, or listening to a conversation between two people, which seems to be a popular format nowadays, we are actually losing out quite a bit of the skill development already from a young age that's necessary to understand volume, facial expression, intonation, brevity, length, storytelling, basic communication skills that will serve us well throughout life. So I'm not surprised if there are people or kids spending 10 to 15 hours a day on their phones and not actually engaging in play and communication, that the way they're communicating and we are communicating is changing. All right. And it's not just kids. I see people my age around all the time on their phones. I do it. I come home, turn on my phone, and immediately I'm sucked into whatever it is that I'm doing there and what's going on that phone, answering messages, reading the news, doom scrolling. Luckily, because I've had 8 hours of boredom and disconnect, and I am reconnecting with that feeling of what this distraction actually does for me, I'm better able to put that phone away, and it's becoming easier and easier. But boy, it is tempting, all right? And boy, it is difficult to actually make that change, because there are benefits there. There are a lot of good things that can be done on the phone, when we use it with purpose. The same thing for AI, the same thing with any other tool or technology. But it's just such a shame that I've had to go out into the mountains to discover what the benefits of that disconnect and the boredom actually were. So, anyway, one small change that we can make that maybe is going to help us make a step change in our day to day lives and our relation with technology is to try for an hour a day to just be off the phone. And maybe that's easiest first thing in the morning where it just stays off till after breakfast. Maybe that's easiest first thing in the evening when we get home from work where we turn off the phone for 60 to 90 minutes. And in using that time to just be bored and to sit with that boredom and to let our minds wander and experience the miracles that can happen to our brain power when we give ourselves that time. The church bell is about to start ringing, which means I'm out of time for the morning, and I have to hop down to the baker to get some fresh bread so that me and the family can start the day. But I just want to say thank you for dropping by. Remember that you're good just the way you are. We've got to love ourselves before we can move on. It's the person we are today. It's going to get us to where we want to be tomorrow. A bit of kindness is going to go a long way. All right. The only way to get anything done, friends, is by showing up and doing the work. So we're going to kickstart today, get that fresh bread from the baker, and get started. You can hear the church bell starting to ring, and I'll leave you with that view for a moment before I turn off the stream. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're interested in continuing this conversation with me.